Hey guys, good morning. I was too tired to shave last night, so that presents some interesting options regarding the soap loading. So we'll get to that in a minute. So this is a morning shave. Nacet blade, Vetiver from Martin de Candre, Semogue Owners Club with a Taj handle. And this guy's gotten 30 or so uses, 30 or almost 30 uses as of right now, and so it's really coming up there in terms of many of the bore brushes that I have, so I like that. Open comb base plate on my Fatip special edition, black and gold, and that's the Piccolo handle. Here's what the soap looks like. Because I took a little longer between shaves, so a 1.5 day shave, obviously I've got longer stubble, but that also means that the soap has had more of a chance to have that water left on the top of it from yesterday's shave. Just a little bit. I mean, nothing that would have poured out if I would have turned it upside down, but just extra moisture. That has been able to move more, integrate itself more into the soap than if I would have shaved last night. At least that's my theory. And so while the last couple of days, an 11 swirl shaving pass, shaving load, has given me plenty of lather to do the job, I'm wondering if that's going to be different today because of the difference in drying time between shaves. So let's find out. Water on my face. And also the balm for today, as usual this month, Integrity from Soap Commander, and it's the unscented with no menthol. I'll be using the lather bowl, the 3D printed one that I've used so many times. And let us load up. I believe the brush has had about 3 minutes of soak time. So hopefully it'll be enough to do the job. Okay, shook out most of the water. 11 swirls. And that's 11. And you can see how the brush imparts a little bit of water on the top of the soap that's still moving around a little bit. Now I'll see if I can get a couple of those drips off. All right, and now, see, I knew I left a piece out. Usually I put the blade in my razor, or at least align it if it's already in the razor. So I knew that I had forgot a piece because I was thinking I don't usually move to the brush this quickly. Just to show you, this is the Nacet, and you should be able to see the 3 dots from a Sharpie on the blade, kind of as a signature that it's the same Nacet that I've been using the whole time. And if I tried to hold the blade, keep it from moving in relation to the top cap, and it's a little bit over to one side. So there we go. All right, face is wet. Let's go ahead and start seeing what the lather will give us today. Now, the good news about not having too much soap in play is that it equalizes reasonably quickly, meaning that the soap and the water in the brush will meet together and kind of become a lather in a pretty homogeneous mixture relatively quickly. And You can experiment with different times to add water. Some soaps, there are a few out there that really like to have water added slowly, especially at first, like Mystic Water. One of the keys is to really work the lather with only a little bit of water in your brush. Work that for a couple of minutes before adding any water. And from that point on, it's pretty normal. But for people who add water too quickly or come at it with a wet brush, they're usually very frustrated because it takes a long time to recover and get it to kind of come back to a good lather consistency if you do that first. But otherwise, it's a very slick and underrated soap. Well, I'm happy to see this kind of puff up and give me some quantity right away. I don't think we're going to, have a shortage on lather today. Let me tilt down my phone a little bit to make it easier for you guys to see the lather. Another ½ teaspoon. Since this is a small quantity, I don't want to overwater it. And I know that sometimes 2 teaspoons has been just the right amount of water for this amount of load. A couple of ways to measure. I haven't mentioned these in a while. To kind of measure the water hydration level in your soap and to see, when is it time to stop adding water. A couple of the easier ones, you can, number one, just look at it. Does it have a bunch of little pointy things? Look at the texture. Does it have a lot of ripples? See, this doesn't really have a lot of ripples throughout. It does have some points to it, as you can see. And this one does not have very many ripples. It's kind of one big clod. It's one thing. Another thing is just to simply feel it with your fingers, rub it between your fingers, and see how it feels. I call that the contact slickness. And that is where this soap just fails. It just doesn't feel like very much at all. You can also pull the wad of lather down to the bottom of your bowl, pick up about half of it with your brush and lift and see what happens. Do you get a long peak? Do you get a really short peak? If it does something like that, does it move around? On the better soaps, I can have this whole wall of lather come up because it's got so much water. And then when it finally does let go, it just collapses. And the speed of that collapse can tell you how much water is in your lather. And let's see, another good tell is to kind of get a big old wad of it on your brush and wiggle and watch it drop. Notice how I did not have very long peaks before it dropped. Watch how it lands in your bowl. Does it land and keep its peak? Does it land and flop, into something a little bit less viscous? And what do the peaks look like? You can pick up, see, this is not really creating very many peaks on my brush, so that's something to tell you as well. Most of my good soaps will create a long peak about this long to my finger, and whether or not it supports that peak or not will tell you something as well. Now look, yeah, like right here, see, there's a little bit of a long peak right there. He is still able to support himself, but he's got a little bit of flex to him. And so those are some things to look at. Now notice in none of these little indicators did I tell you what exactly to look for, because that's up to you. Those are things to look at, and then you can determine after, like, take a mental note of it, what it looks like before your shave, and then do your shave, and then afterwards, well, was that the right consistency? Well, that was perfect. Okay, well then memorize, put in your memory those things that you saw in your lather right before you shaved, and just try to hit those every time, and that'll really help you. Because maybe you like your lathers drier than I do, and so my criteria is not gonna fit you. I'm thinking with MdC, I need to run it a little drier. This might be what I need to do. I can always add a little bit of water later. All right, so let's get my face wet again. And then, of course, like I mentioned, if you didn't catch it, even if you may like a certain level of elasticity, like more than this, in your lather, you may discover that a particular soap you're using just doesn't work well, is maybe a little too wet for that particular indicator. And so if you like a long peak that's got a lot of elasticity and doesn't hold its own weight, that's kind of like I like it. Well, a lot of the good soaps, at least that's why I call them good soaps, a lot of the good soaps will do that, like Sterling. Reef Point, of course, they're discontinued now. They will do that just fine. Barrister and Man and Holy Cow and, you know, Noble Otter and those guys will do that. But then you may run up with a soap that, you know, is, when you do that, it's just too wet by the time you get it on your face. And so you just have to make a mental note or one on a piece of paper that says, this one is, I need to run drier than usual. It's all part of the chemical processes in the soap, the elements in the soap. Well, this didn't turn out to be too dry. It's staying pretty, it's not feeling pasty. It's not, as you can, it didn't puff up immediately. You remember last couple of shaves, I've had to kind of remove some of the excess puffy pieces around my goatee. Didn't have to do that, so I could probably use a little more water, but probably not too much actually. So it might be just right. Some guys, when they have to run a soap drier than usual, they consider that a soap that they don't want to keep. And so they pass it on. All right. A little tuggy, not bad. And if I haven't explained it in a while, what I like to do is I think of it as keeping even wear on the blade. There are some guys, they will use only one side of the blade, and then when it starts to feel dull, they'll flip it around. And so they may use just one side of the razor for, you know, 8 shaves, and then flip it around and use the other side, tracking which side. I don't want to do that. What I do is I just go for even wear on each side, and how I do that is pretty simple and intuitive. I shave until one side kind of fills up, and then I turn the razor. Yeah, I know, it's a crazy thought. I turn the razor and I use the other side until it fills up. And that's when I rinse the razor and I start the process all over again. And I think that generally gets me pretty good wear. All right, little rinse. And second pass. Looks like I'm going to have enough lather to do the job. So that's good. So 11 swirls might be the golden number, and if you happen to, you know, shave a little bit later the next day, it looks like maybe the 11 will can still cover you. Like I said before, I'm just going for kind of the optimal load, because after all, I want to give you guys a number at the end of this month that says how many passes and shaves I was able to get with this for this tub of soap. And so I can't really do that if I'm being wasteful, at least. Now you may want to you may want to choose to do a 12, 13, 14, 15 second swirl, 15 swirl. type of situation, and that's just fine. You may want that extra margin. You may like yours a lot thicker than mine. You know, there's all kinds of variation. But me having a good baseline will then help you to know how you want to do yours. And I'll be able to say I had an optimum comfortable load, and this is how many passes or how many shaves you'll get from this load. And this is probably your best case scenario. So that's kind of what I'm presenting. Your most, in terms of economy, this is going to be your best case scenario. Little half rinse. Load up the brush, and still a pass left in there. Maybe even more if probably more if I, squeezed out the brush. But I usually don't include the brush lather when I say it generated, 6 passes. Just kind of my habit. The brush is feeling nice and soft. We've got lots of split tips. I think they just gradually split. So in a way, this Semogue does take a while to actually break in and get those split tips. But it doesn't take very long to get comfortable. And to me, that's a little bit more important. This is my third pass, but I did not do a typical third pass. I want to go reversed in this direction right here, so let's use my touch-up pass to kind of do that. Why did I choose to kind of skip routine? Well, I was just shaving, having a good time, So, hopefully, that gets things done. Now, full rinse. Yeah, I'm happy with that shave. Nice closeness. Throw on a little bit of balm. If you have a really oily skin, you may want to make sure to try an alcohol splash as your post-shave treatment, because it can kind of help back off that oily skin, kind of reset it each day. You may find that a balm just kind of gives you kind of over moisturizes your skin. I do have very oily skin, but I just decided to use a balm this month. All right, I believe that lather was pretty much perfect in terms of consistency with what I can get from this soap, and that's a relative comment. But I don't believe this soap can give me a better lather in terms of being wet, but also doing the job properly. And 1.5 teaspoons. So yes, I definitely picked up less soap today than yesterday, probably because of the drier soap surface, is my guess. All right, there we go, time to clean up. And here's the brush after the good stropping, and yes, I definitely believe we're starting to see more bristles come out to this outer edge, so that bloom continues to spread out, and more bristles are joining these little outliers here. And the Owners Club is known for a big splay. Now notice during the lathering, when it was wet and all that, it did stay pretty much under control. You know, it doesn't stay bloomed big all the time. Find it really comfortable on the face. It didn't, you know, it wasn't too big for the small tract of land that I have here. And so I just think it's a good brush. I'm really happy with it. And a lot of other people feel the same way. It is a popular member of Semogue's lineup. It's a little more expensive than most of their other brushes. If you might be interested, I like to order from Semogue directly on their eBay site. Portuguese Factory, I believe, is their username on eBay. And they've always given free shipping and very good customer service if you have questions. Been very happy with my interactions from them. Since it's coming from Portugal to the US, or whatever, obviously, country you're ordering from, it does take a little while sometimes, but I'm fine with that. I have other brushes to play with, so I'm cool with that. And you can order Semogues from obviously other vendors that they've sold to, but then, and you may have quicker time of shipping with that as well. But I don't think you will find too many people that can match their price directly from the factory. I think it's just a really inexpensive way to go, unless somebody's having a crazy sale or something like that. Also, for this Semogue Owners Club, if you might be interested in that as a brush, but that price point is just above what you can handle, I recommend the 2000, Semogue 2000. It's got a nice long loft. I had to add a couple of, and so it could have a big splay, kind of like the Owners Club. It's got a similar bristle to the Owners Club. It's more dense than a lot of the other Semogues. I had to put a couple of O-rings along the base because it was getting so big. But I recommend that one. Handle's different, but in terms of face feel with the brush, I think it's very similar. And anybody else ring a bell with the Semogue Owners Club? In terms of density, I'm enjoying the Torga C5 with the premium premium boar bristles. I don't think it's as expensive as the Owners Club. It is definitely has more backbone because the loft is shorter. But I think in terms of density of bristles, it's very similar. In terms of the softness of the face, eventually you'll get those tips to split, and it won't get as much softness due to the lack of loft, due to the longer loft. Like Semogue Owners Club, we're talking about it. Let's get him in the picture. This has longer loft, and so some of that softness comes because the bristles just kind of give. In addition to the softness that comes from the tips having split and becoming finer and smaller in thickness and stuff. Whereas the Torga is a shorter loft, and you have to kind of wait for those tips to split before it really starts to get really soft on you. It's definitely more scrubby in the beginning. But those are two that are similar to the Semogue Owners Club if you can't quite afford the SOC. I believe we're good. 11 swirls, 1.5 teaspoons of water was today's mix, and it was a nice lather. That MdC, as good as one as MdC can give me. I might try, oh, you know what I was going to try? I was going to try face lathering, but instead of doing the overloading for face lathering, I will load for, let's vary things a little bit. Let's do an 11 swirl load and then see what that does for me on face lathering. Try that out. All right. Till next time, this is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I hope there's been something good in this video to help you out. Happy Austere August. Take care, guys.